Hello, and welcome to the Coach's Corner, brought to you by the Endurance Lab. My name is Jason Flores, one of your coaches from the Endurance Lab, and during each of these episodes of the Coach's Corner, we take a couple minutes here, just a quick format to answer some of the questions that have come up in our group of athletes that are training. And so we are going to cover a couple things as we have in the title there. We're going to talk a little bit about changing your bib shorts. We're going to talk about cadence training that we've been doing a lot of and experimenting with. And then last, how you as an athlete can help your coach train you better. So let's start off right away, just right off the bat, and let's go ahead and start about bib shorts. So I was on a live stream kind of last week, and I was chatting in live chat, and someone was asking, how often do we change bib shorts? Is it every ride, mid-ride, every week? And we kind of took a Gallup poll among riders and kind of everybody on the stream and kind of asking around. And obviously, or hopefully, best practices we find is that changing bib shorts after every ride, super important, just because of a lot of the buildup of sweat, bacteria, all those things for our kits, our bibs, just a big, kind of infestation, I guess, of different things that can build up. Once that dries out and then it become moist again, I think it could be problematic. So best practices would be to making that change every single ride, as well as considering drying those out before you store them in a laundry bag could be really useful. Obviously, there are some ways that were brought up in the conversations about could you rinse, wash them, dry them. Someone brought up the idea of like when you were, let's say, travel riding, hotel biking, kind of washing them in hotel sinks and wrapping up in a towel and then wrapping that again, putting them under the mattress to really absorb all that water for the next day of riding. Those could be some solutions if you're using them daily. And not wanting or not able to. Maybe you don't have access to doing something like that every week or every ride, excuse me. So definitely think of that. The other thing that was interesting that got brought up was changing bibs, especially indoor riding, where a lot of times ventilation and or wind evaporation isn't happening as quickly, is changing every hour or two when you're doing that ride. And this came in conversation with some of the riders that we were having thinking or doing Everesting attempts essentially, and being able to change every couple hours into new bibs, or even some of the riders that have done outdoor rides that had sag support, to be able to change at sag support and have a fresh kit on after several hours in their bibs and kits was it's definitely a money well spent on sag support. So let us know. Let us know, how often do you change your bibs? Do you do it daily? Do you do it weekly? Kind of what's your situation? We want to hear kind of from your end and what you think of all that. Obviously, the flip side of that is dealing with some of the hygienic things and making sure that you're out of your bibs, getting cleaned up, dried off, and if in the effect that you end up with something going on, definitely making sure you're treating that properly, antibiotic care and that sort of thing. So we could definitely bring in and have a conversation about that. The second topic that had come up this week that we wanted to cover was talking about cadence training. A lot of riders have asked kind of what kind of focus should we have. Usually the first thing that we try to get people to do is to raise their cadence. That's usually the first thing, just because it's a lot of times as a beginner, riders are riding at a very low cadence. But what we really believe in is to be able to ride at a variable amount of cadence, meaning a variance of cadence, I guess would be better said. That means being able to create power, let's say 150 watts at 70, 60 watts, 90 watts, it's 150 watts at 60 cadence, 90 cadence, and let's say 110 or 105 cadence. So at a varying of cadence, being able to provide or create that power. And the reason why this is important is that obviously we have gears on our bike. But when there are gradients out on the road and changes in pace, let's say in a group ride, these are considerations that we need to have to be able to make adjustments to be able to keep up with the group. And to be able to not always find just that one cadence that we all work at could be very, very important. It also stimulates different muscle groups. It also stimulates, higher cadences will stimulate more of an aerobic stimulation of that, your heart rate and that sort of thing, an aerobic kind of pull of energy. And lower cadences will pull from like a more muscular kind of side of things and pull from that end. So you could also vary these through a workout or through a ride to be able to give one energy system a break and the other a chance to kind of work and balance those out. And so those variants of cadences are not only important kind of in real world, let's say climbing at a low cadence, in a peloton, or trying to recover in a group at a high cadence, but also to train these when you're on the bike. And so not only are we asking our riders to go to a power level to be able to hit, let's say, that 150 watt sweet spot number, but also to be able to hit different numbers on cadence. The first step will always be hit the power, find your cadence. Are you within a normal range, yes or no? And at that point, can you go 10 above? Can you go 10 below, 20 below, and that sort of thing? So we recommend a lot of kind of variance in that. We do a lot of below threshold workouts, what we call fat max and slow burn workouts in the endurance lab. And a lot of that is kind of like high zone 2, low zone 3, or even middle zone 2 work. And a lot of that stuff is done with a lot of technique. So combining those things where you're hitting power and you're using technique are super important. So what's your favorite cadence out there? What do you guys train, and do you favor higher, lower, and why? And do you feel like training at a lower cadence specifically, we are finding that riders are getting some good benefits from that, specifically muscular endurance. And this is something that we have always kind of praised and always really kind of dig. If you are in the lab, you find yourself during the recovery weeks doing a lot of skills and drills, and that is where it comes from. So the last thing I wanted to cover today here was how can you help your coach train you better? And a lot of it is communication, and everybody's a little bit different. We try to use a platform that's very accessible and usable and able to be used at your time. And so that allows you to communicate with the coaches and the other riders pretty easily. But the biggest thing is to making sure that you are clear about what your setup is, you are clear about kind of how things are going. Also, it is super important to be able to make sure that your setup is consistent. A lot of times we will recommend that riders have the same power meter that they use indoors or outdoors, or that they are able to find that their indoor and outdoor power meters are very, very close for ease. Obviously, having two separate bikes, or even the same bike with the same power meter, or two different bikes with the same power meter, are very useful. I think it can be a lot of chasing around for both the coach and the athlete. If power meter indoor and outdoor are different, it can be very challenging. But I guess on the side of communication and working with your coach, I think identifying goals are very important. I think communicating fatigue levels and understanding like, hey, is this week really tough for you? And it's not just all about the stress that we're getting from your riding, but also the stress that you're getting from just everyday life. So some of those things are the things that you should be relaying as well. It's the thing that like today's plan can't tell us, isn't able to kind of relay to us and tell us how the rest of your life and training is. So keep those things in mind. Reasonable goals, meaning that you have those out, kind of out in the open, saying what you are wanting to do. So I think those are all important things to think about as we kind of move forward. Trying to think if there's anything else, but yeah, biggest thing for coaches is setup, communication, and then and goals. So, but as for that, is there anything else that you feel that is a real kind of foundation that you have with us as coaches or with your coach, let us know. We can cover it and we can chat about it a little bit. But just a quick episode here. This is kind of the format that we're going for, just kind of quick questions. So if you've got questions during the week, drop them off on our Instagram, send us a DM, and we will cover it in the next week. And hopefully you guys are enjoying the podcast format. You can find us at endurancelab.fit. You can search for the podcast at the Endurance Lab on your favorite outlet for podcasts, as well as find us here on Instagram at the Endurance Lab. All right. We will catch you on the next episode of the Coach's Corner. Thanks for joining us.